In this video, what we're going to discuss today is dealing with the editing options that we have available to us using Editable Poly. Now, what I'll be showing you guys how to do here is how to apply the Editable Poly to your shape as a refresher because over what we had done in class. So let's get started. Now, inside of 3ds Max, you can see here I actually have an empty scene in our document. And what we're going to be doing here, we're going to add in a simple shape or a primitive. So we'll go over to our primitives. And here I'm going to use a box. So just like anything else in using or applying a modifier, you need to actually have an object on there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to click and drag my object and then scale it up. Now here, you notice that I have some segments in here already. So that make things a little bit more easier for me do this demo. Now, in here, we have two options to go about applying an editable poly. The first one is by going to our modifier, and in here, either go by right-clicking on the box, and here we have our option known as editable poly. So we have that option there, or we could always go ahead and right-click on our box or our object, and go to convert to, and then here we have our option known as Editable Poly. Either option will be just fine for this option here. So what we're going to do here, we're going to click on Editable Poly. And here we're going to go over each of the 5 selections that goes on with Editable Poly. First up, we actually have our first option, which is our vertex. And in here, it has like these points is on our object or on our primitive. So each of these points have blue dots, and we usually by selecting them by clicking on the blue dot, and you notice that it'll turn red when you have that selected. So just keep that in mind. So just like anything else, we could always use our move tool, our rotate, or our scale to select any of those points. Now, if you hold down the actual control button, you click on each of those points if you want to add on to more than just one point to select. So that's how our vertex work. Going down the list, we actually have our edge. So in our edge, this will allow us to actually select the actual lines that's within our object. So if we click on the line here, you see how it turns red. So if you can't see it very well, I'll go ahead and zoom in. So you can see here that as I rotate around, you see how that red lines come more prominent. So just like we did before with our vertex, if you hold down the control button, you can actually select more than one line that's on there or more than one segment. Now, we're going to skip over border because this has a special requirement in order to use it. So we're going to go to our polygon next. So using the polygon, this will actually allow us to select what we call the face of our object. So each of these, the lines that we have in here, they're divided up in 4 quadrants. So we have each of these quadrants are known as faces. Now, and just like before, if we click on each of the faces, if it turns red, that means we have it selected. Now, going over to the next line over will be known as our element. So the element, it is pretty much known as like, if we click on our object, it selects the whole entire thing in itself. Now, where this actually works, if we have like 2 or more objects that are grouped together, this allows us to actually select each of them one items in that one group. But since we only have one item or one object in our scene, obviously it will select just that one item. Now, going back over to our polygon here, right? So I'm going to go ahead and select one of the faces and press delete on my keyboard. This will actually remove one of the faces on there. Now, here is where the border comes into play. So if we click on our border, much like how we have like to select our edges with our second option with our edge, what the border, what it does is anything that has an empty face, which you have like an empty box right here, we have right here. If we click anywhere that's in that area, it will turn that whole entire empty face into a selection. So you can see here we actually have like all those segments that is empty on that face is now selected as a point. Okay. Now, One other final thing I will mention to you guys in here is that you can actually rotate through all 5 of these options if you wanted to actually save yourself time by using the hotkeys. And you do this by pressing 1 for the vertex, 2 for the actual edge, 3 for the actual border, 4 for the polygon, and 5 for the element. Either one of those hotkeys will actually make things a lot more faster, much more easier for you if you want to go down this route.